Listen to
Tax question.
this.
Sure.
During the de Blasio years, there was a lot of talk of reforming how we tax real estate
Property tax
taxes.
reform.
It's the only thing that New York City can do by itself. Then it just disappeared.
Well,
Is there a need for property tax reform? And if so, what would it look like?
Yeah, it just disappeared. Exactly. Thank you, Marsha. But it's not something New York City can do by itself. It can change the rates, the tax rates. It can change the assessment ratios. That it can do by itself. But certain things it can't do by itself. By the changing S7000A, the law, it can't do that. But it can change property tax. The Department of Finance has control. The assessor has control over the rates, but it won't do it because it wants to make believe it can't.
There's two parts of this. One is the city only has control over property tax in terms of raising revenue itself. Everything else, they have to go to Albany.
Right.
What does that even mean? What does he mean by raising revenue itself? He means the rates. Why not say what the controls are? The assessor can change the assessment ratios for the classes. The city council can change the rate, the actual tax percentages.
Property tax reform is critical for two reasons.
Why?
One is
Let's
control
just go
over
back.
property.
Then it just disappeared.
Yeah, let's just
Is there a need for property tax reform? And if so, what would it look like?
There's two parts of this. One is the city only has control over property tax in terms of raising revenue itself. Everything else, they have to go to Albany.
Right.
raising revenue. What does that even mean? He's so confused, this guy.
Property tax reform is critical for two reasons.
Why?
One is equity. We are charging more for the people in some of the poorest districts than we are in the richest districts. That is inequitable. The other is...
Well, what he really means is in 1981, whatever the assessed values were at that point for Class 1 property, if you take Bay Ridge, the assessed values were higher because the properties were probably built a little bit later, and also they were not destroyed by the crazy 1980s downturn, the 70s and the 80s and the near bankruptcy, all that. Also, the other thing is Bay Ridge is not a poor community, and it's taxed higher. The Park Slope is definitely not a poor community, and it's taxed lower. And all of North Brooklyn is taxed higher, but there's special cases even there.
We have a disincentive in our property tax system to build multifamily rental housing.
But that's what the 421A exemption is all about. That's what is he talking about? He doesn't even mention 421A, the billions and billions and billions of dollars that go to that. They keep changing the name of it. I think it's called affordable housing now, but just Marsha, can't you ask questions?
What do we need in New York City? Multi-family rental housing, because we need more housing.
So they should be taxed more or less?
So it should be taxed less, because disproportionately we've put the burden on them, and so it's a disincentive. We need a multimodal housing strategy, but part of that would be wise to be property tax reform, because it's good for equity and good for housing production.
So you're thinking that rich people would pay more and poor people would pay less?
Talk about oversimplification. Marsha, do you even know what you're talking about? Unbelievable.
If it's fair, that is, in general, what would happen. However, you need to phase it in. You need to do this right. That's been part of the challenge, and that's why we've been stuck.
Look at Bloomberg reports. At their advisory commission, we asked the question, where's the details? What does a phase-in mean? Mr. Andrew here, what does a phase-in mean? What do? Pay 20% of the old tax and 80% of the old tax and 20% of the new tax? No one's even explaining. You have to give details. Now, the commission, this advisory commission, was forced to give real numbers, and you can go to prop.titleforce.org/new tax and calculate what your new tax is, or search for anybody's tax. And given the whatever it's called, the star exemption, whether you're owner occupied and your income, it'll calculate based on all their circuit breakers. We asked the current comptroller to put this on their website, a simple calculator, but they said it's too complicated.
4 decades. If we were unstuck, it would help all New Yorkers in the long run.
But we have about 15 seconds left, but is that like a third rail? It's like hard for a mayor to do that and be popular?
Well, I think it's less a third rail than it's just so difficult to get through. And unless we have a court case saying you have to do it, and there is a court case out there, but unless you have that, we haven't found the political will to do it.
First of all, the mayor can do a lot of stuff. The Department of Finance can do a lot of stuff. And of course, they're afraid to do it. And the Department of Finance, even on Twitter, I can post a link to it, shows they admit that they have control over you can just read the law and see it yourself, but they admit it. They say it has to be under a determination. Well, of course, the Department of Finance is not supposedly political, so yeah, they would have to be told to do it, but that's what the assessor does. He sets the assessment ratios. It's changed. You can look at the S7000A Wikipedia page. It has changed under the Bloomberg era. It changed. The assessment ratio for Class 1 property changed from 18% down to its current 6%. I'll put links in. Peace out.